Hey everyone, it's Lindsay. I am here to talk about values. As I have shown before this video started, I don't want you to think like me. I just want you to think. I know a lot of people think, oh, she's this crazy liberal professor, and so you have to think what she thinks. That's absolutely not true. I want you to be able to examine your own values and figure out what are those values, mostly because that will help you to live in accordance with your own sort of values, which will lead you to have a less stressful sort of life. So let's talk about values. What are values? Values are things that we keep inside of us, that we have some sort of innate sense of right and wrong, things that we agree with, things that we don't agree with. They help us to determine our own behavior. They help us to determine what we think about other sort of behaviors in the world and other sort of things. Our values are something that are innately born within us, but of course they're influenced by things that are all around us. Our first influences for our values, of course, are our family of origin. So whether that be your parents, whether it be guardians, whether you're raised by your grandparents, whoever you're most involved with as a kid, that's who's going to shape your immediate values from the forefront. Both intentionally and unintentionally, you get these messages from the people that you live with. Secondly, our values become influenced by our cultures. Now, I can talk about cultures in a big picture sort of way, such as, being an American, or if you were born in a different country, thinking about our gender. So the culture of being a woman, women and men, because of societal expectations, have a lot of different values that we hold dear, and we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. Or it could be more small scale sort of values. Religion, although religion is a big picture sort of thing, most of us practice religion or not in small sort of segments. So within our faith communities, within our own sort of churches or synagogues or mosques, that is where we get a lot of our ideas about values, is from that very close sort of picture culture. From there, of course, we're influenced by wider mass culture, such as media, by school and education, by our friends, by all sorts of different sort of things. And so our values will refine and shift and grow over time based on what it is that we are exposed to. Why are values important? Well, they're important for a lot of reasons, but most importantly is for us to help, values are important to help us make decisions. Our values help us to dictate sort of what we think of right and wrong in the world. And one of the biggest sources of stress, particularly for college students, is not living in according to your values. College students in particular are in a unique time and space, at least traditional sort of college students. You're leaving the home for the first time. You are out of your parents' home. You carry with you the values that they have taught to you. And now you have to decide, are those my values or not? For some people, yeah, they say, yep, I am in accordance with my family's values. And for some people, they say, yeah, no, I don't really line up with my family's values at all. It's one of the major sources of stress for college students, is figuring out, who am I? What do I believe? And how is it similar or different to sort of my family of origin? Values in and of themselves are not unequivocally right or wrong. Values are very subjective. They're open to interpretation. The only values that are important are the ones that you hold. And so it's really important for us to know what our values are, because that helps us to live a life that feels good and safe and feels like it's in accordance with our own sort of sets of norms and behaviors. Sexual values in particular are really important to examine, because they help us to understand sort of choices that we make about ourselves, about our relationships, about our love lives, about things that we do or don't do with certain sort of people. And so sexual values are really important to be able to examine. So for this week, I want you to sit and think about your values. Again, there are no right or wrong answers. It is merely, where do these things sort of bubble up for you, and what are the things that influence them? And so for this week's activity, I'm going to have you look at a series of statements. They're open to interpretation, intentionally left to be ambiguous with some gray area. I want you to read those values and then say whether or not you agree, disagree, or if you're unsure or not really sure how you feel about those sort of things, answer that. If you want to tell me why you feel that way or why you chose the option that you did, there's a place for you on the activity to fill that out. It's not required. If you don't want to tell me why you feel that way, that's totally fine. But sometimes people will say, hey, here's how I interpret it. Here's how I want to explain why I chose this sort of side. After the activity, there is a reflection piece where I want you to think about, hey, where did these values come from? How did I feel about going through these sort of things? Because part of the process of education is about reflection. Critical thinking skills are really important. And so we have to say, why do I feel this way? How do I feel about feeling this way? What does this make me feel? And that is going to help guide us in terms of the study of sexuality this semester, is to check in with ourselves. Where do we start with our values before we start looking at other sort of things? All right, I'll see you later.